United have always had great Scottish players, and amongst those, some unforgettable strikers. Sandy Turnbull, Lou Macari, Joe Jordan, Brian McClare, and of course the King. But there's been another great Scot who's managed to forge a place in the 13th spot in United's all-time scorers list, David Hurd. David Hurd played in a team containing the Holy Trinity, Paddy Crerand, Nobby Stiles, Alex Stepney and other United legends. So it's easy for those of us who came after to forget about his marksmanship, power and terrific strike rate of better than a goal every other game. You're pretty much guaranteed 20 goals a season from this lethal centre forward. So it's about time we gave this Scotsman his due and raise our glasses to an underappreciated United legend, David Hurd. David George Hurd was born on the 15th of April 1934 in Lanarkshire, Scotland, but spent his childhood growing up in Manchester. His footballing father, Alec Hurd, was an inside forward for Manchester City. Alexander Matthew Busby was a teammate. It was probably a mix of nature and nurture that saw the young David develop, especially as he was childhood friends with City fan and future United legend Dennis Viollet. When the Scotsman's father moved on from the blue side of Manchester in 1948 and joined Man City Light, i.e. Stockport County, David also joined the club's youth side. Not long after his 17th birthday, David made his goal-scoring debut for County on the last day of the 50-51 season, positioned just in front of his 39-year-old dad, who was playing his final game in league football. His 6 goals in his 15 appearances was enough to attract the attention of First Division clubs. 18-year-old David Hurd was a mere whisker away from joining United from Stockport in 1952 as a straight swap for wing half Billy McGlenn. However, McGlenn nixed the deal by opting for Lincoln City instead. Despite Busby coming up with an alternative cash offer, the deal fell through. 2 years later, and it was Arsenal who came in for the 20-year-old, signing him from the Hatters for £10,000. However, as Arsenal were in transition at the time, it took Hurd another couple of years before he won a regular place. The Scot spent 7 years in North London, building an enviable record of 107 goals in 180 matches and attracting the attention once more in 1961 of United boss Matt Busby, who was still trying to rebuild after the Munich air disaster just 3 years earlier. Ironically, David had played in United's last match on English soil before the Busby Babes flew out to their ultimately tragic European tie. The Scot opened the scoring for Arsenal in what would be a 5-4 victory for the Red Devils at Highbury. So Matt Busby signed his fellow countryman from the Gunners for £37,000 in the summer of that year. David was 6 foot, strong and a natural goal scorer. He got more than his fair share of goals wherever he went. The Scot was reputed to have one of the hardest shots in the game at the time. He was known as Hot Shot, and with one of his right-footed strikes recorded at 72.5 miles an hour, Hurd terrorised First Division keepers for a decade and a half, usually keeping his shots low to make it more difficult. He was a quick and strong runner who also had the ability to hold the ball up well, displaying good link-up play when it came into his possession. Hurd could score from any angle. He also had the ability to shine in mediocre teams. Always enthusiastic, he filled his boots with goals in an average Gunner side before similarly contributing handsomely to a poor pre-best United outfit. Unassuming despite his rich supply of goals to the side, the United faithful never held him in anywhere near the same esteem as, say, Dennis Law. David Hurd made his debut alongside his childhood chum, Dennis Viollet, on the 19th of August 1961 in a 1-1 draw with West Ham. He scored 107 goals in 180 matches for the Londoners, and so much was expected of him. He didn't disappoint, scoring his first goal in his second game in a 3-2 win over Chelsea. He clocked up 17 goals in 32 fixtures in his maiden season, but it was Dennis Law's arrival from Turin in the summer of '62 that really set things off. Hurd was an ideal foil for the King and vice versa. David worked hard up front to create space for his new partner to exploit. However, despite Hurd's 21 goals, the club struggled, almost relegated in the spring of '63. Somehow United made it to the FA Cup final, the 4th under Busby, as he took on favourites Leicester City. The Foxes had finished 4th that season as United had floundered. That said, only one team really turned up on the day, and David won his first winner's medal for the Red Devils. Not only that, it was a Scottish barrage as Law grabbed a goal and Hurd a brace resulting from 2 uncharacteristic Gordon Banks errors. The game ended up 3-1. That win galvanised the side, and with the debut of George Best mid-season, the team then had a new precocious star quality about it. Lanarkshire-born Hurd was from good Scottish stock and, like his father Alex before him, earned himself international recognition. Alec had made sure that his wife gave birth over the border in case of this eventuality, so he could represent Scotland. However, remarkably, despite his terrific records for both Arsenal and United, he only managed to garner just 5 appearances in the famous Navy Blue, transferring his goal-scoring ratio to the international stage with 3 goals for that unjust handful of appearances. He won his first cap for Scotland on the 18th of October 1958 against Wales at Ninian Park in a 3-0 win. His last cap came in a 4-0 defeat to Czechoslovakia on the 14th of May 1961. Even more curiously, he never represented Scotland whilst on United's books. Over the next few years, David Hurd won 2 league titles and a Charity Shield, but strangely was often the scapegoat and target of dissatisfaction from our fan base when things weren't going so well. I suppose the only reasonable explanation is that you can't go after the Holy Trinity during a bad run of form for the team, so they vented on a man who scored a goal more than every other game. Already coming up to 33 years of age, David tragically broke his leg in March 1967 against Leicester. That setback kept him out of the side for almost 11 months, which meant by that time, local youngster Brian Kidd had all but claimed his place. He managed only 8 more appearances and a solitary goal before the European Cup final, where he was in the matchday squad, but Kidd played in his stead and scored one of the precious 4 goals. David's last appearance as a Red Devil was before the European triumph, a 2-1 home defeat to Liverpool. The striker's ratio was 0.54 as he scored 145 times in 266 matches over 7 years, with none of that being contributed from the penalty spot. Hurd is currently placed 13th in United's all-time goal scorers list, level with Cristiano Ronaldo, albeit the Scot got there in 81 fewer matches. He left for Stoke on a free transfer in July 1968 after collecting 2 league titles, a European Cup, an FA Cup and a Charity Shield. Stoke were a struggling side and the Scotsman only managed 11 goals in 48 games over 2 campaigns at the Victoria Ground and was released at the end of the 1969-70 season. In December of that year, he signed for former teammate Shay Brennan's Waterford and played a few games in Ireland before retiring from playing altogether. In total, he'd scored 269 times in 511 club matches. The former United marksman then moved into management in the 1971-72 season, taking the helm at 4th Division Lincoln City and doing a decent job, just missing out narrowly on promotion. However, the Scotsman's foray into management ended there after an argument with the chairman. A young unknown wannabe manager, Graham Taylor, took over his position. After retirement, David Hurd ran a couple of car dealerships and garages in Urmston and Davyhulme, David Hurd Motors, and in his spare time played cricket to a high standard with several local clubs around Manchester and was a long-time member of Ashton-upon-Mersey Golf Club. Aged 82, David Hurd passed away on the 1st of October 2016 after a tragic 5-year battle against vascular dementia. 2 of his former clubs, Manchester United and Stoke City, sported black armbands when they took to the field against each other the next day. So that was the unassuming United legend that was David Hurd, a man who, despite his excellent goal-scoring record, didn't enjoy the same adulation given to many of his teammates. But does he have yours? What do you remember of his time at United, and what does David Hurd mean to you? Please comment below and like, share and subscribe. Thank you as always for your support.